similar figures. What they are, they're actually two figures that look the same, they're just different sizes, or they could be the same size. But what that also means is that their angles will correspond, and then the ratio, the corresponding sides are equal, or the corresponding angles are congruent. And I may use this notation is congruency, so I may or may not use that. So the corresponding angles for these two examples, if you take a look, looks like these two are in the same appearance but different size. So what that means is I'm going to say that K is congruent to N. That means that those two correspond, those two angles. We're using capital letters for the angles. J is congruent to L, and then H is congruent to M. Now, let's list the corresponding sides in the pair of similar triangles. So if you look, this KJ, we'll use that notation. We'll say that it corresponds to NL. And then we'll say KH corresponds, side KH corresponds to the side NM. And then we have this third side, JH, side JH. Say it corresponds to side LM. Now notice when I write these that since K corresponds to N, if I put K first, N must go first. K first, N must go first. Wherever I have a J and it's congruent to L, wherever I have a J, if J goes second, L must go second. J comes first, L must come first. Same thing with HM. H is second, M is second. H is second, M is second. I mean, that's a big deal in this. Or it can be a big deal. We're actually now going to solve some triangles, but before we do that, something else you need to be aware of. When I say the ratios of the corresponding sides are equal, here's what that means. If I take KJ, side KJ, and I'm going to just leave off that line because it could interfere. So I take KJ and I divide that by JH. What that means is that's equal to NL over LM. See that? This stuff like 1 over 2 is equal to like this 1 prime, 2 prime. Those are primes. So that's another way to think about it. And then if I do like KJ over KH, that means that's equal to NL over NM. Now there's one more ratio or proportion to what it actually is. If I do KH over JH, that's the same as NM over LM. And I'm going to use that information to answer these questions. Find the value of x for the following similar figures. Now what I have this side is going to correspond to this side, and this side will correspond to that side. So what I like to do, I can either use 14 over x and then 10 over 20, or 21 over x and 15 over 20. Either one is fine. We'll get the same result. So I'm just going to use 14 over x, and since that 14 corresponds to that 10, that goes up there. Since x corresponds to 20, that goes down there. And that's our proportion we want to solve. We're going to cross multiply. We're going to take 14 times 20 equals x times 10. 14 times 20 is 280, and then x times 10 is 10x, and the side proportion, after you multiply, you divide. In this case, by 10. We get x equals 28. And just to show you that it wouldn't matter if we use 21 over x, and we'll do it right quickly. 21 over x is equal, in this case now, 15 over 20. Cross multiply. 21 times 20 is probably 420, but it never hurts to make sure. 21 times 20. Well, I left out a 0. We do get 420 equals 15x. Divide both sides by 15. I'm just going to hit divide. The answer is the last answer that I have in my calculator. So it's 420 divided by 15. And we still get our x equals 28. So either way, you get the same result. Just it's all based on what you're given. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Now they don't just have to be similar triangles. They could also be similar, in this case, trapezoids. So if you look at what we're given this side, which corresponds to this side. So x corresponds to 5, and 60 corresponds to 14. So the proportion that we can set up is x over 60 equals, I'm going to use 5 over 14 because I have to. Now I easily could have said x over 5 equals 60 over 14. It does not matter. It's the same thing. I just like to do one figure at a time. So now I'm going to cross multiply. So I take x times 14, cross multiply, equals 5 times 60. X times 14 is 14x. 5 times 60 is 300. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 14 because when you we're solving proportions, you cross multiply and then divide. I'm going to take out my graphing calculator and divide 300 by 14. Scientific calculator is fine also. And I'm going to round that to 2 decimal places. So 21.43. And that's it.